Hey everybody. As you may see, I'm in a different location. My diary episode for February 15th, 2025. I am currently my second night, technically, at Dream League Season 25. Um, and I'll be here until March 4th. So I'm here a pretty long time. Um, yeah, I'm analyzing the event. Um, Looking forward to this event. I feel like I'm in a pretty good headspace. Feel like I'm doing a good job to maintain my routine, set myself up to be healthy, happy, all that kind of stuff. They are pretty long days overall, but that's okay. Um, yeah, the theme of this week has been, oddly enough, talked to a few friends, people around me, in regards to confronting people with conversation. Basically, expressing a concern. This could be in the workplace, personal relationship, really anything. And I guess this is like one of the first times in my life where, like, at least in a small period of time, where I felt like I gave relevant feedback and technically advice on how to approach these conversations. And this is something I was working on for a really long time, because I myself was very non confrontational, wasn't very good at voicing my own needs and concerns, not only in personal relationships, but also in workplace related things. Basically, if I had a problem with something you were doing, whether I'm working with you or whether or not you're my friend or significant other, whatever, I was never really the one that knew how to tell you in like a healthy way. Uh, and so there's several things that kind of came to mind this week, and I feel like for all the people that I talked to, they've been in a few weeks before this as well, but it happened multiple times this week. Oddly enough, I felt like I was useful, and I felt like all the stuff that I had worked on, I kind of had to articulate it this week specifically. So I feel like now is a good time for myself and maybe for you guys out there. Give you some food for thought. Um, Good for me to log it for myself, and it's good for you guys maybe to get some thought, like I said. So, I kind of made like a formula having these conversations. So, just to be clear, these are all conversations where somebody's doing something, whether they do or don't know. Most of the time, they don't. I've learned that if something's really bothering you and you don't say anything, most of the time, people are unaware. Maybe they have like an inkling and it won't surprise them when you let them know, but majority of action I've seen is not malicious, and it's just simply out of lack of communication between two individuals. So for me, obviously the first step in solving that is to communicate. But I think how to approach this conversation is really important. So first, I kind of talked to them about how there's several questions I ask myself. I think the first thing is to remain curious, give the person the benefit of the doubt that they are not acting maliciously. Um, Generally, you can kind of learn if they're acting maliciously by having the conversation with them. I guess in here I'll mention a few things to look out for, I guess. Um, that's more for you guys than for me because I've been doing this for a while. Um, but remain curious about the other person involved. Why is it that they might be doing this? Maybe they're under stress. Maybe they're unaware of something that, like one of their bad habits, something that it's difficult to be self aware. It's difficult to look at yourself in the mirror and know exactly what's right or wrong with you. I mean, there's never anything wrong with you, but things you could work on. Um, and so sometimes it's a matter of needing to hold a mirror up to a friend because you've watched them for X amount of time kind of fall in the same cycle of some behavior. Um, so yeah, really asking myself, maybe this person's too busy for this. Maybe they just weren't thinking about it. Maybe this is something I've seen them do before, and it's more a pervasive problem, and I should talk to them about it as a whole, kind of thing. So is it more about this problem, or is it about a specific instance of a problem? So like how big of a sample size do I have? I guess I kind of skipped a question here, where if I do have a problem with somebody, I kind of have two decisions. which is to distance myself from this person in regards to like the workplace, stop working with them. It's easier for me since I'm like self-employed and I choose who I work with in a lot of facets of my life. Um, or if it's like a friendship or relationship, to end it. That's like option one. And then option two, and for me, the criteria here is really if the person's worth it to me or not. Like, is this relationship, how long has it been going on? How long have I been working with this person? How long have I been their friend? And is it worth time, energy, investment to preserve it, And, the majority of the time I'd say it is. I guess like times where it's not, figuring out either a quick conversation about this or just ending it, rather like kind of withdrawing, depending on the situation. Um, Meaning I would never officially ghost somebody, but kind of not taking the initiative to spend time with this person. Um, if I go down that route, and then my approach has kind of been if they express that they have an issue with the fact that I've withdrawn and drawn a boundary, then I'll bring up the topic to them because I initially didn't really feel like it was worth it for the mental energy. Maybe I didn't have that mental energy at the time, and maybe I did it eventually. It's not always like black and white of like do it or don't. It's like maybe I didn't think it's like right now is a good time, and then the person talks to me about it. I'm rambling a little bit, but so let's like circle back real quick. I guess I'm deciding whether or not this person's worth my time. Because it is difficult to voice your concern in a healthy way, work towards a solution with somebody. It's a lot of mental effort and energy and time to figure out the right way to do that. And over time, it's a skill. In my opinion, it's totally a skill, and you get better at it. You get faster, and it gets less taxing. Just like like approaching the gym. You can do the same workout with it being a lot easier. Um, so yeah, first and foremost, ask myself: is this something that's worth it to me with this specific person? If it is worth it to me, then I move on to the part about asking the questions, being curious about the person, being ready to hear whatever their explanation slash. There's a difference between excuses and explanation, by the way. Big difference. But then I have a general formula. I also ask myself, what's worst case scenario here? Before I go into the formula of the conversation. What is worst case scenario here? Be careful of having expectations. It's okay to have expectations coming out of the conversation, but I also think it's dangerous to expect them to say something. To expect a vibe, meaning like a vibe to be working with you and all that kind of stuff, that's different. But expecting, yes, I'm going to do that, yes, exactly what you're saying, like if you're having like an exact amount of words that you expect to hear, that's, I think, unhealthy and setting up for failure slash, not solving the problem. Failure in this case is not solving the problem, or like coming together to work out the problem. So a few like mantras, I guess, is this is a we problem, not a me problem. So I'm bringing my portion to the table when I'm bringing up the conversation. Like, this is why I have a problem here, but presenting it in a way of we have a problem. Whoops, I just bumped my mic. Positioning it in a way that we have a problem. And so one of the first things to be careful of is if the person you're talking to makes it a you problem. For instance, I feel like we don't spend enough time together anymore. And it hurts me, and I wish we'd spend time together. And the person's like, I feel like we spend plenty of time together. That's not an issue at all, kind of thing. That's making it a you problem. Because you're saying you have a feeling, and they're like, no, you don't. That's an example. I just tried to think of one that's maybe not the best example, but making your feeling a you problem, a good response would be like, oh, I didn't realize you felt that way. I'm sorry to hear that you feel like we're not spending enough time together. I've been really busy lately, yada, yada. That's an example of making it a we problem because they clearly care that you miss them or you don't spend like enough time with them. And they're not making you feel crazy for having missed them. That's an example. That's like a mantra is, are they making it a we, like I need to make it a we problem? Are they also making it a we problem? Maybe I'll come back to some mantras later, But that's like one of the most main ones to look out for. Honestly, I think if you go into it thinking to yourself, I'm trying to make this a we problem, are they making it a we problem? Then I really think that can prevent a lot of toxic scenarios. And when they are making it a you problem, like if they say the first thing, then you need to do your best to say, but that is how I feel. Let's make it a we problem again. Like you need to turn it back into a we problem. If they keep resisting you on this, I'll be honest with you, they're probably a toxic person. Probably not good for you here. And they're probably very emotionally unaware slash manipulative, or all the above. But yeah, so that's the first mantra. But going into the formula of the conversation, that I've really come to the conclusion of is to first and foremost present why you are bringing up this conversation today. So what you're feeling and the events that have made you feel this way. So this is for me kind of presenting the facts. One thing I've really come to the conclusion of is that feelings are fact. If I feel hurt, if I feel frustrated, that's like a fact that I felt frustrated. It doesn't mean the other person should feel horrible and that they have to like not that my emotions are completely like conducive to a helpful conversation. That's not necessarily what that means, but it means that if I was frustrated, that did happen, right? So I treat the first thing as presenting the facts, the happenings of the situation. So hey, I feel like we're not spending enough time together. I've been feeling really lonely slash neglected lately, and I've reached out to you a few times through text, and you haven't responded. And I didn't want to pester you anymore, and I really wasn't sure what was going on. So that's like the facts, you know? I wasn't sure what was going on. I texted you. You didn't text me back. That kind of thing. So that's what I mean by presenting the facts. A lot of this is what happened and this is how it made me feel. That's like the first step, I feel like. If you're in more of a workplace, I think the feeling part would be less, if not omitted. It can be like, and this is stressing me out, that's an example. And this is frustrating me. I guess there's certain emotions that are just more appropriate for the workplace to say, like, this is frustrating, you're stressing me out. But if it's like it just for the record, it's kind of varying on how many actual facts and how much emotion is involved, depending on the relationship we're talking about here. Are we talking about your significant other, or are we talking about your boss? You don't need to say I feel inadequate to your boss. I guess you could do that, but maybe not be the most conducive to a know your audience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So first step, presenting the facts. The second step for me is to establish what I'm trying to get out of this conversation. So in the case of the friend that I'm talking about that hasn't been spending enough time with me, to say, hey, my goal from this is to figure out like where you stand and where I stand, because I feel like I'd want to spend more time with you, and I'm wanting to know, do you feel the same way, or is life kind of getting in the way, and maybe we don't have enough time for each other, or like is this like basically this is a priority to me? Is it a priority to you? And I want to feel like we're in line with how much time we should be spending together, and how I would like to communicate in the future. So something along those lines. Like, what are we gonna change? Slash, what page are we gonna be on after this conversation? So presenting the facts of this happened, this is how I feel, and this is what I want us to do together, right? So that's like the we problem aspect of it. And then the last step that I think is required is that this is what I want to accomplish. What are your thoughts on this? Right? Like, what are your thoughts? How do you feel here? Basically saying, I feel this way. I want this, but I don't expect you to want this and all that. Like, I don't have an expected answer from you. I want to hear from you. Where are you at? Right? And so for me, that's like how I enter all of these conversations: present the facts, tell them why you're here and what you want accomplished from the conversation, and then ask them where they stand and if they have thoughts, comments, questions about how to go about doing this, because it's a team effort. And then from there, in my experience, if the conversation's gotten past that point where it feels like they're clearly working with you and it is established as a we problem, you'll feel it, the difference between a we problem or a you problem. Um, I feel like the conversation kind of sorts itself out from there. There's a lot of variance. There's a lot of things that can go from there. Um, but for me, that's the key. Those are the key components of having a healthy, concerned conversation. Like, I'm concerned about this. Big difference between I have a problem with this and I'm concerned about this. These are more of concern type talks. If it's more of a job related thing and it's like, I have a problem with the work you're doing. Um, it's the problem is if you come to them saying, I have a problem with what you're doing, that's very offensive, or not offensive as in like you're offending them, but you're on the offensive, you are attacking them. So I guess more so it's just be careful that you're like attacking the person, and say like, hey, this is what I see. There's a big difference between saying your work isn't good enough and hey, this is what we hired you for, this is what I see, and we're not getting enough out of you for your role, and I'm trying to figure out what we can do to get you there. That's very different than like you're supposed to be doing 40 of these a week. You're only doing 23. If you don't have 40 done next week, you're fired. That's a you problem. That's making it a you problem. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to tell people how to manage, but for me, I'm trying to give an example of saying the same thing in two very different ways, one of which I believe will be much more likely to get the result that you're looking for. Um, so yeah, these are just been the thoughts I've been having this week. I personally haven't had any conversations this week, but it felt like in my life I was somehow helping people around me in similar type conversations, and or at least talking to them about what I did. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm giving kind of good advice here, or at least like being helpful to some extent. And in the past, I was never good at this. So I don't know, it felt like a testament to some of the work that I've put in. Um, because for me, these type of conversations are just absolutely essential. And I don't particularly like the guy very much, but there was a quote I heard from Jordan Peterson, which is like, failed marriages are all about the 10,000 arguments that never happened. And it's something like that. Don't quote me verbatim. But I thought that was like a really cool way of wording it. I do feel like conflicts within parties, within relationships, whether it's work or personal, to be honest, in my conclusion now, 99% of them are lack of communication. It's a miscommunication, and nobody said anything. So I think a lot of this, if you're just starting out and you find this interesting, is to first kind of question yourself and be like, what is the definition of a miscommunication? Like, what does it look like? More so, what does it look like? How does it manifest itself? What's one problem I have in my life right now? And how might me and this person be miscommunicating? Like, what do I think about it, and what do they think about it, perhaps? Because usually it's just you two being on very different pages, and a lot of times we want to work together with the people around us. There are some very toxic leech type people who leech energy off of people, leech favors, kind of expect lopsided relationships. There are out there. Don't you worry, they're out there. But I feel like the majority of people are not. At least if they're talked to in a nice way, they almost always work with you. Um, but that also might be like my anecdotal evidence. Uh, And maybe I've just gotten lucky. So I don't want to say like a number, but in my experience, there are people out there who will work with you on these things, and finding them is the key. Because once I feel like I can have this type of conversation with you, honestly and openly about pretty much my definition of the best friends and the most important people to me in the world, are really the what percentage of topics that I share with this person, or values that I have, can I have this type of conversation with them when they are concerning me? And I feel like we're misaligned when we're on different pages. There's miscommunication. What percentage of the time do I feel like if I talk to them about it, they'll do something? Um, Honestly, that feels like almost the number one criteria for how close I can be to somebody. These conversations for me have just been so powerful and really deepened most of my relationships, whether the trust in a workplace relationship, the connection in a personal relationship. Um, yeah, it just feels super powerful. And I felt like sharing it with my future self and you guys today. So thank you so much for watching, me and everyone else. Have a good one. See you next week.